Okay, everyone, I think we've got a pretty good number. So I think we'll just go ahead and start. Welcome to the 180 Personal Lines webinar. My name is Lena Camille, and I'm the Sales and Marketing Director for 180 Intermediaries. And just a big thank you to everyone for taking the time to learn about our capabilities and get to know us this morning. We really appreciate it. Today we'll discuss offerings specific to our private client services, our non-admitted personal lines programs, private market flood, and aggregation services. Kicking off the discussion today will be Brian Botwinick. He's our private client services practice leader who's been in the industry for over 25 years in companies like Chubb and Atlantic School. And he's focused on personal lines and high net worth personal lines throughout his career. Brian will be followed by Jeff Deloof. He is our marketing manager and responsible for carrier and agent relations. He's also responsible for the sales, marketing, and accounting functions for our aggregation services team. And then last but not least will be Heather Kendrick, our business development manager with over 15 years experience in the industry and responsible for growing 180's book of business in the eastern and southern part of the country. I will then briefly comment on the rest of 180's capabilities for those that aren't familiar with our broader organization. And the final 10 minutes of the webinar will be reserved for Q&A. You'll see on the top right-hand corner of the Webinar Jam software, there's a space where you can chat and type in questions. So as they come up and come to mind while the presenters are speaking, if you can please just enter in your questions. And then the last 10 minutes, like I said, I'll try and get to all or as many of the questions as I can. Any that we don't get to, I'll certainly email you separately with a response. So with that, Brian, over to you.
Thanks, Lena. How are you guys this morning? Hey, this is Brian Botwinick. I'm Private Client Services Practice Leader here at 180 Intermediaries. Really pleased that you guys joined us today and appreciate your time. If you do have questions, let us know at the end of the, Lena had mentioned we have a Q&A at the end, so just hold them for that. All right, today I'm going to talk about three segments of our private client services business. Our private client services, not admitted high net worth business, our non-admitted personalized programs, and then also our private market flood options. So just to start with, we'll get into our high net worth private client practice. We work with AIG Private Client Services, Chubb, Vault, and NatGen Premier. Just so you guys know, all of them have different entry points from a coverage A standpoint. So, for example, Chubb on a non-coastal admitted would be 500,000. Vault's on the other end of the spectrum is at 1 million coverage A, and then both AIG and NatGen are at 750. It's important to keep in mind that as we're looking at coastal business, these minimums can change, and then also AIG requires that we have at least 3 lines of business. So the home, an auto, an umbrella, and/or an excess policy. That's kind of the entry point for us with our admitted high net worth personal lines. But I just wanted to talk about some of the advantages with our high net worth carriers products. Our homeowners products all include guaranteed replacement costs. We include all risk contents, building and contents. Water back up to the coverage limit. We offer a cash settlement option, which means if the insured chooses not to rebuild at a particular, if they suffer a total loss and they choose not to rebuild at that particular location, they can take the face value of the policy and walk away. We offer reasonable expense for loss of use, reasonable expense for ordinance and law coverage, meaning there's no limit on the policy. It's just reasonable expense. Most companies will either put a dollar limit on that or a percentage limitation on that. We also have other coverages available, which include personal cyber coverage. We also have service line coverage and equipment breakdown coverage. On our auto products, with all of our carriers, we offer agreed value, and then we also have no daily limit on rental reimbursement, which is nice, especially if someone has a high value car. That can get pretty pricey on a per day limit. There's a cap, either 5,000 or 10,000, depending on the carrier, but no daily limit. Valuable articles coverage, we do offer agreed value. All of our valuable articles policies with all our companies, which is nice. There's no requirement to replace. If someone loses an item, company pays the limit, they can walk away. They don't have to go and the insurance company's not going to try and find a replacement for the item. We also offer market value protection, which gives a certain percentage of increase every year over year to keep up with inflation costs. Umbrella, we also offer high limits are available. We can offer higher limits of excess uninsured motorist coverage, and then also EPLI coverage is available for if your customers have domestic employees, employment practices liability, just to be clear. We could also offer watercraft and aviation coverage within our private client services division. So just touch on a couple points why we think that we're pretty good at in the high net worth space. One, we have really good market access. You can see we work with 4 premier carriers in the high net worth space. We have long-standing relationships with those carriers, which in turn gives you guys a benefit of that long-standing relationship we have with them. Expertise, our private client services team has many years experience working with both the high net worth carriers and their products. So my guys are able to provide you guys advice, guidance, and can answer any questions that you guys might have. Third thing here is we have nationwide capability. We're nationwide with AIG and Chubb, with the exception for AIG. They're not writing in California right now. Vault is in 13 states, admitted paper, primarily East Coast driven, but then also they've expanded into Texas and are moving west. We have NatGen Premier, which is also East Coast driven, and they're also in Illinois and Arizona. So we have a pretty good mix of products around the country available. Another unique thing we do is we offer download for our Chubb and AIG business through Ivans to our retail agents. That's a unique offering in the wholesale space, and certainly a time saver for both us and our agents. And then finally, exceptional claim service. Our carriers are used to dealing with high net worth individuals, know how they expect to be treated, and we maintain a good relationship with our claims people as well. So I think that's something to highlight on why 180 for your high net worth customers. So now I'm just going to shift over to our non-admitted personal lines programs. Our non-admitted programs can be written standalone or in conjunction with our admitted products. We work with a variety of carriers on the E&S side for our homeowners business. We write with Lloyd's of London. We have a binding authority with them, which, by the way, also offers a direct bill, which is kind of unique in the wholesale space. We work with Lexington Insurance Company, Vault E&S Insurance Company, and also Beasley USA, which is Lloyd's paper. We target coastal homeowners business, rental properties, vacant homes, short-term rentals, builders risks, high profile, celebrity we can also do some standalone wind coverage. You really think of that as a solution for the business that falls outside the admitted side. We like to offer a pretty good product on our E&S business. We do try to include 25% extended replacement costs on everything. We try to include at least $25,000 in water backup coverage, equipment breakdown, increased ordinance or law limits. Just one important note here, with the Vault E&S product, their E&S product mirrors their admitted homeowners product. So we can get guaranteed replacement costs. We can get water back up to the coverage limit, cash out option, things like that. So that's another sort of advantage Vault has in the E&S space. Excuse me. We do write standalone umbrella and liability business. We use US liability for that. Max limit with them is $5 million, primary or excess. We can look at standalone CPL coverage. That's going to be either primary or excess. And we see that mostly with a lot of rental properties, Airbnb type scenarios, things where someone might just need or want a liability only product. We offer standalone collections, so standalone jewelry, fine arts, through one of our Lloyd's facilities, Beasley specifically. We find this most useful where your customers might have a schedule of items that that isn't a fit for the homeowner's carrier, or might say it's Florida where the carrier just doesn't offer standalone coverage. So that can be a nice fit. A few other items we offer: standalone physical damage coverage for automobile. See this where you might have a high net worth individual with maybe a not so great driving history. Their standard or non-standard carrier will write the value of the vehicle, but can provide the liability. We can step in and look at the standalone physical damage on that. We also do some standalone K&R business, kidnap and ransom. This is written through Hiscox USA. They're a global player in the K&R space. They offer limits up to $65 million. And they handle all aspects of crisis management, including ransom payments. And again, that's something that AIG and Chubb do have their own kidnap and ransom facilities, but some other high net worth companies just simply don't offer it. We can step in and provide a solution there. Just finally, I'd like to move on to our private flood program. Our private flood program is a quote bind and issue online for qualifying risks, which is great. We can do up to $5 million coverage, total insured value. So that's going to be coverage A and coverage C combined. We can do residential or commercial. The rater will also do primary or excess flood. We can also do some business income on secondary locations. And if you are writing or quoting a commercial property, we can do business income on that up to $500,000 in limit within that $5 million total insured value. The form is lender compliant. We do offer replacement cost on contents, and on a commercial building, we can get replacement cost if not within the rater, but we'd have to go outside that, but we can get the underwriters to look at that as well. So that said, if something doesn't fit our online rater, we can jump into our other markets that we work with. We have various brokerage markets that we work with in London. We have another company called Voyager Insurance Company. Think of us, where you have maybe a limit that doesn't fit within our rater. You may have a negative elevation, might be residential condo units. So we have a variety of other options once we get outside the rater. So just a quick, sort of way our E&S side helped our admitted side. We just recently wrote a $4.5 million limit on an $8 million home in Connecticut with a negative elevation. We placed the primary, or the homeowners with Chubb, but then we were able to get London to do the excess flood on the negative elevation for about $53,000 premium. So it was kind of a nice win for both the admitted side and the non-admitted side. Just finally, what's the best way to get us a submission? We're not really picky about how we get our information, just as long as we get what we need. We do have a quote request application that we like our customers to use. It really captures all the information we need for both our high net worth companies and our non-admitted companies. It's pretty quick and easy. We'll get you guys a copy of that after this. But that being said, we can take it a court application. I can take other carriers' application. Really, just however you want to get us the information. As long as we have the information we need, we're happy to work with that. As I mentioned, the online flood rater is a quote bind and issue online, so we'll get you access to that as well. And then we also like to get our submissions through. We have certain inboxes, apps at PCS bind at. So we'll get you guys a list of our, not just our submission inboxes, but our contacts as well. Anyway, that's all for me for now. Really look forward to speaking with some of you guys. We're always here if you want to give us a call to talk about a risk. And then I'm going to now turn this over to Jeff Deloof.
Thank you, Brian. Good morning, everybody. We appreciate you guys attending this morning. My name's Jeff Deloof. I'm the marketing manager for 180 Aggregation Services. What we do is provide agents access directly to preferred carriers for both personal and commercial. Before I hand it over to Heather Kendrick to discuss all the details, I did want to touch base on a couple of items. The map you see on the slide there has a handful of states highlighted, which are the states that we are actively writing in on the aggregation services side of the business. We write in Texas, Louisiana, Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, New Jersey, and Connecticut. I do want to emphasize everything Brian discussed previously can be written in most states, with a few exceptions. The aggregation services has a plan to rapidly expand our state footprint. However, if you have interest and you're not in a state we currently write business in, please reach out to us, as we might be able to open our markets in your state. So we started the aggregation services under a legacy brand in 2000 with a focus in personal lines. Since then, we have quickly expanded into small commercial lines, and that is a large part of our new growth. We were acquired in 2018 and are now obviously part of 180. Let me now hand it over to Heather Kendrick to talk about the details. Heather?
Thanks, Jeff. All right, guys. So on our aggregation side, as a preferred aggregator, we're here to help agents with standard and preferred carriers that they otherwise might not be able to get appointed with on their own. We work as a liaison between the insurance company and the agent to appoint an agency with a subcode that will give you direct access to the carrier to quote and bind business. And as we all know, there are all types of insurance agencies out here, and they all run a little bit different. So when we work with an agency, we really try to take the time to understand your goals, what type of business you write, and which carriers you're currently writing with. Then we want to see where your agency may have a need for an additional company to help fill in any gaps. We want to help you have the markets to be able to successfully close the majority of the leads that you have coming into your agency. And really the key to making that happen is by having an array of strong competitive carriers at your disposal. And while it's nice to have a plethora of carriers on hand, we all know from experience that isn't always feasible. Carriers, especially preferred carriers, can have steep requirements in order to represent them. And whether those requirements are an already large established book of business or a production requirement requesting X number of policies per month, it can make it really tough to bring on new carriers, and then tougher still to satisfy carriers in the long term. And so this is really where 180 aggregation brings value to insurance agencies that we work with. We're able to take the pressure of the high volume commitments off the individual agency while still allowing you direct access with the carrier with full binding authority, as well as having your name on the declarations page. Now, we're not a cluster, we're not an organ or a network, so this tends to work very favorably for our agents. You stay fully independent with all your own direct appointments, and you can utilize 180 aggregation to get appointed with the market that perhaps you've been wanting to represent in your agency, but you couldn't due to a variety of factors, whether it's the volume commitments, time in business, or agency size. Now, I could be biased, but I do feel 180 has some really great benefits that other aggregation groups are not able to provide. And one of the most important benefits that I believe every agency principal wants to know is who owns the book of business. So any carrier appointment that's received through 180 aggregation is fully owned by your agency from day one. We do not retain rights to any of the business that you place through us. We don't charge any fees to work with us. This includes no startup or monthly fees. We generate revenue as a company through either a commission split or an override by the carriers that we appoint your agency with. That being said, we have a very vested interest in getting your agency a company that you're able to grow with. We also feel we have some of the most competitive commission structures around. Our larger national carriers are typically paid at a 90-10 to an 80-20 commission split, while we do have some regional carriers that you're paid 100% of the commission rate, while the carrier pays us an override to act as a marketing arm for their company. And as I mentioned previously, you also have direct access to the carriers to quote and bind business and minimum volume requirements. And I really like to use the term minimum requirements instead of no volume requirements, because traditionally speaking, if you don't see yourself writing 1 to 2 policies per month with a carrier, you probably don't need that company in your agency. I'm going to go to the next slide. So this is a list of some of the more popular carriers within 180 aggregation. Some are more readily recognized names, while others are smaller regional carriers, but still very competitive and definitely a value add to an agency. And keep in mind, it's perfectly fine if you already represent perhaps a Safeco or a Travelers or some of these other markets. But maybe you don't have a state auto or a nationwide or an all-state appointment, which traditionally can be a little tougher to contract with directly. We would love the opportunity to work with your agency to help you get a code to write with one or more of these carriers. And I do want to mention, a lot of this webinar, we've been speaking about personal lines. However, I do feel we'd be remiss not to mention that we are able to appoint agents with direct access to quote small commercial with some of our carriers. We've been seeing a large increase in our commercial book just by giving agents authority to work directly in the carrier sites to quote and issue their commercial business. So if you are interested in 180's aggregation services for personal and or small commercial business, I'd love for you to reach out to me directly after the webinar to discuss further. And on that note, I'll hand this over to Lenica.
Thank you, Heather. So now that you've heard about our personal lines offerings, I wanted to share a little bit about 180's overall capabilities outside of the personal lines space. So we're a privately held wholesaler, program manager, and obviously aggregation service provider. We're headquartered in Boston, but we've got offices throughout the United States and Canada as well. While the brand was relatively recently launched, you'll find that we've got decades of experience in areas of expertise that I'll go over in a minute. And we find that this high-level cheat sheet is a really good way to kind of go over our programs and services. So starting on the left pillar there, our wholesale brokerage offerings, you'll see that we've got property and casualty with access to carriers throughout the UK, the US, and Canada. Those teams focus on hard to place risks. Our minimum premium is $25,000 each line. We can write in all 50 states, and we've got no excluded classes of business. Similarly, our workers' comp team specializes in the hairy stuff that standard markets don't want. However, their minimum premium is $10,000, and they can also do occupational accident. Our financial lines team, on the other hand, writes accounts of all premium sizes and really offers that consultative approach to management liability, professional liability, and cyber. Our specialty construction team, writing again the hairy stuff from contractors in New York to crane operators, demolition contractors, all lines of coverage. They can do it monoline or package. And then finally, on the wholesale side, we have a transportation group. They like to say they can write anything that moves, either monoline or package. They can do large fleets, single owner operators, new ventures, last mile, limos, buses, a very broad appetite. So that's our wholesale services. On the program side, we've got the Penn in-house binding authority for a number of different programs. Starting with our marine group, it's the largest marine MGU in the country, insuring over 15,000 boats and yachts. They've got not only in-house binding authority, but they've also got in-house claims management. In addition to the boats and yachts, they can do marinas, marine contractors, charter fishing boats. It really does run the gamut. On the transportation side, in addition to our wholesale placement offerings, we've got the Penn with a number of different carriers, again, available nationwide, all lines of coverage. Property programs, we can assist you with builder's risk, plat exposed property, and more. Our medical stop loss team is a full service MGU, partnering with leading carriers and reinsurers. We've then got the pen for jeweler's block programs, special events, restaurant, and cannabis risks. We've got binding authority with Old Republic for our nonprofit D&O and MPL risks. And not listed here, but an area where we've had a significant amount of success is our pandemic protector product. This was launched earlier in the summer. And while it doesn't cover COVID-related risks, it's any future pandemic or epidemic outbreaks. So a very intriguing, interesting, and timely product I'd be happy to talk to you about in more detail. We've also grown our business. You can see across the bottom, we now offer travel and health coverage, providing insurance and reinsurance, MGU services, as well as TPA services in this space. And a lot of the capabilities I just mentioned, we can now offer up in Canada. So with that, oh, and I'm sorry, and then on the far right, you'll see we can help you with filing surplus lines forms. You can quote, bind, and issue policies online. If you have a book of business that might be fit for a program, we can help you to develop a program. We've got a lot of experience in that area. So now we'll hand it over to Q&A. And like I said, I've seen a few questions pop up here on the chart. So hold on, let me. The first question, do we have access to all 180 offerings? I'll go ahead and take that one. Yes. If you've got a producer agreement with any of our 180 entities, then we honor that across the organization. If you're not sure if you've got an appointment with us, please reach out to me separately and I'll certainly help you with that. This looks like it's for Heather. Heather, are there any fees charged to my agency?
No, we are not in the business of charging fees. That's not what we're here for. So anytime you get an appointment with any of our carriers, you'll never see any fees from us.
This one looks like it's for Brian. For private flood and high net worth coverage, can we write in all 50 states?
We can, excuse me, I was just having a bit of a coughing fit there. We can write in all 50 states. The only limitation with the flood, there might be some zip codes that are, excuse me, filled up with aggregate, but the rater will tell you that. So I think, as long as the retail agent has a license in that particular state, we can write there for them.
Also for Brian, where do you go to quote business online?
So we'll get you guys access to a link for the rater, for the flood rater. Again, I apologize, I just had a coffee fit here. And then we'll get you guys a copy of our quote request application for the PCS side.
Heather, on your side, can you talk about where to quote business online?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
There's also a question to Heather, where do I go to quote business online?
Oh, so any carriers that you want to get access with so that you can quote and bind online, really we need to have a conversation first. So my contact information is going to be up, I believe, on the next slide, and we'll send it out. So just feel free, reach out to me. Yes, there's my phone number, my email, and we can work towards getting you guys those contracts to be able to quote.
And so I know that we've reached our time limit now, but I just got one more question I think others might have. What is your admitted high net worth carrier appetite in the state of Florida right now? That's for Brian.
Florida can be a little bit difficult for admitted carriers right now. So AIG has some fairly sizable minimum premiums depending on what county you're in, and also a requirement for out of state or non-Florida business. So if I'm renting a house in South Florida, I'm going to have a house outside of South Florida or outside of Florida. Vault is kind of in the same bucket where they want, if I'm going to write something in Florida, I'm going to have to have something outside of Florida. And then Chubb can be a little bit more flexible, they, depending on the value of the house and where it is, I may not have it out of state requirement. NatGen is not currently writing in Florida right now. So it's kind of on a case-by-case basis.
And like I said, for the questions that I didn't get to, I promise you that I'll send you an email separately. I'll also send you an email with everybody's contact information and some of the links to quote and bind online. Again, thank you everyone so much for your time. Thank you to our speakers. I think that went really well. And we look forward to working with you. Thank you again.
Thank you, guys.
All right, thank you. Appreciate it.